Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Unquestionably Raw. And we are going to continue our NBA previews tonight with the Indiana Pacers. And we've got two special guests tonight. We've got Scott Agness and we have Keith Smith again with us. And we also have Mike Morris. We've got Gonzo and myself. And I'm going to get this going. I'm going to go right to you, Scott. So in the offseason, the Pacers made some changes, adding Al Jefferson, trading for Jeff Teague. You pick up Aaron Brooks and those guys. How do you see this team's depth and how some of this will play out this year?
Yeah, I like the depth so far, and great to be with you guys. Right now, so far from the beginning, Nate McMillan, who's taken over as head coach, has said how it's essentially a 9-man rotation for them right now from the beginning. He's open to expanding it maybe to 10, but the starting lineup set of Jeff Teague, Monta Ellis, Paul George, Thad Young, and Miles Turner. Second unit will essentially be Aaron Brooks, a newcomer, with Rodney Stuckey, CJ Miles, and then inside Al Jefferson. The big key takeaways that I've seen from Coach McMillan in the first week really has been that he's asking his team to reinvent themselves. So whether that means playing this more up-tempo style of basketball, whether it's, being a 3 but having to play some minutes at the 4, stretching guys out, he's asking guys to be unselfish, reinvent themselves, and then is really asking for true accountability. Mm-hmm. That's one of the big reasons everyone has said that influenced the decision to move on from Frank Vogel. When it comes from expectations, I would probably put them in the second tier in the Eastern Conference. And obviously Cleveland's alone by themselves in that first tier. So I could see them finishing anywhere probably from second to fifth, realistically, at this point.
Okay. Outstanding. Keith, what do you think of this Pacers roster this year?
Yeah, I think they're going to be a good team once again. They have really good pieces. As Scott said, they've got a good deep roster, which is going to work to their benefit over the course of a long season. But the only challenge for me is George Hill fits so well for them as a point guard who didn't need the ball. Mm-hmm. He could come up, get them into their sets, move off the ball, let Paul George do a lot of the ball handling. The only question I have really with their offense is Jeff Teague's not that same kind of guy. He needs the ball to be effective. So does Paul George. So does Monta Ellis. When Al Jefferson's in there, he needs the ball as well. Miles Turner is pretty good. I actually think they might be better off in the long run if they brought Ellis off the bench, let him be that scorer, and I would even start CJ Miles.
Good luck telling him that, though.
Tell me about it. Right?
He's the perfect 6-man too. He's your prototypical 6-man. Come in and just get buckets.
You know what? Sorry to interrupt. The story one of the key stories right now in my mind has been Monta Ellis. And I mean that because he spent about 25 minutes with us this media day. Most guys went for 10, 15 minutes. And I know it's media day and they say a lot of things, but he felt like a changed man. He admitted some mistakes. He said he realized finally for the first time last year that he's an old guy. And so because of that, he's got to compensate. He's got to be getting stretched out more. He's got to be drinking more liquids. There's something called sleep that's actually important. And I also took that as maybe less drinking or maybe less going out. I don't know. That's my assumption. That he's kind of just settled into being a veteran and is prepared for what he needs to do to maintain in this league where he's at. It's a lot of young guys, and then him. He battled all kinds of injuries last year. Didn't get significant time in the training room that really an injury like that would require. That's a guy I'll be watching to see if his play backs up what he said to us earlier this week.
Mm-hmm. So the only thing now, we just got to get him to accept the role off the bench.
Perhaps. We'll see. We'll see. I'll be curious. Frank Vogel was very much a stickler for his lineups. He stuck with his guys, and he was really loyal to a fault oftentimes. And there was no better representative of that was a couple of years ago with Roy Hibbert. The guy was done so. And Frank Vogel, one of the most loyal guys, consistently stayed with him and never said that he was changing the lineup, and nor did he. Even though everything else told us, he should.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Outstanding. Mike, what are your thoughts on this Pacers roster?
So far, so good. I want to see what it looks like to put Jeff Teague with Monta and Paul. Of course, they're all ball heavy, but And Jeff Teague actually turned into a point guard that's just about getting into the sets and then taking it over in small spots, small spurts when somebody comes off the bench, when maybe Monta or Paul goes to the bench for a breather, then make it his time instead of him being the first one to get going. Because you got Miles Turner down there that's not going to beg for the ball. Thaddeus Young probably won't beg for the ball that much either. They're hustling scrap guys to start the season, especially with Nate McMillan. He's not going to sit there and just be like, all right, you just keep rolling. He's from that old school. Played for George Karl when they made the finals. Defensive guy for his whole career. He wants to see, can you do more than one thing?
Absolutely. Gonzo, I know you're really high on this Pacer team, so I'm curious on your thoughts on this roster.
Absolutely. And I think the reason why they got all these, I'm going to say offensive acquisitions, is because everybody's been trying to beat Cleveland with defense. And some people might say, well, Jeff Teague is not the prototypical point guard like George Hill, run sets. But I see what Indiana's trying to do. We have a lot of different offensive players that can hit you on any night from many different angles. That might actually play well playing against a team like Cleveland, because therefore it makes Cleveland have to play defense harder, but also they have an array of weapons that they can constantly hit at Cleveland, from the bench to the starting lineup. Tire Cleveland out. That's why I say it's very possible right now. And I say this, when I first saw they got Jeff Teague and I saw that they got Al Jefferson. The moment I looked at the roster, I said this team could be the second best team in the East.
And with a guy like Miles Turner, he'll bring someone like Tristan Thompson out to the perimeter, so he can't be down there to rebound and protect the basket.
Exactly. And then having somebody like Teague, have Kyrie Irving sticking somebody like a Teague or J.R. Smith. Now they have to play even harder on defense, which could possibly tire them out on the offensive end. So my thing is, are they going to be patient and not trying to rush, or somebody's going to take over? Is the ego going to get in the way? This guy going to think I'm going to be the scorer tonight, or they're just going to be platoon guys? Okay, tonight is my night. I'm hot. Tomorrow will be your night, and just roll with the flow. Or will it cause confusion in the clubhouse? Hopefully not the confusion part. Hopefully, they work together and, hey, man, I want to see them take down Cleveland.
Yes. Lance, thoughts on this Pacers roster?
So I think Keith was fine in the pre-show, because I have the same thoughts pretty much about Monta, especially watching him in Dallas. I mean, when he's off ball offensively, he's not really doing much. But I like the team. I'm not going to go as high as second seed. I'd probably say anywhere from 3 to 5, but I'd probably think maybe 3 or 4th seed realistically. I really want to see if they keep up with the defensive side. That's what I'm interested in.
Absolutely.
I mean, because their stats, a lot of them are top 10 defensively. Some of them are top 5, but their assists, they're like 22nd in the league last year. And I think they'll miss George Hill a little bit. I'm still not 100% sold on Teague. Turnover problems. I think he's more of a playmaker, though. I like him. He's younger, more youthful, speed. That's a good thing, especially with Monte's speed, decreasing as he gets older. I like it. I think they'll finish somewhere from 3 to 4, though. I think Boston will still get the upper hand on them.
Absolutely. I think you touched on it. Everybody, has said a lot, but I think you hit it, Lance. Defense is going to be key with them. We know what Paul George can do defensively, but then you have guys like Monta Ellis. He doesn't guard a chair. He's capable, but he just, he's kind of like James Harden in a sense. Doesn't really give much of an effort defensively. We'll see what Teague can do. Miles Turner's a young guy, so it's going to be really interesting. Then off the bench, like Scott told us, you got Joe Young, Aaron Brooks. They're not really considered all-league defenders, and maybe that's being a little nice. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be a key with this team, because they've got guys who can really score. So I think offensively they're going to be fine. And I know Nate will demand they play defense, so it will be interesting to see what they do. I know Scott kind of touched on this a little bit with expectations. If you can expand on just them being second in the East this year, and what if you think they actually have a shot to possibly challenge Cleveland to get to the NBA Finals?
I'm at the point right now, I don't think anyone from what I've seen, I don't think anyone can challenge Cleveland in the East. From the Pacers standpoint, yeah, the last couple guys you guys have hit on it. Defense, how much will they be willing to sacrifice to do what they're trying to do, and that's playing a more up-tempo offense? Because Larry Bird, and this guy doesn't mince words at all. He wants at least 105 points per game. Last season, they were up, but only to about 102.2 points per game. So he's hoping for a couple more points per game, and then with a more offensive-focused talent now on the roster, they're losing the length of George Hill, a guy that doesn't turn it over a lot, and he's just kind of a solid player. The thing with George that really to his fault was he was willing to take on whatever role the team needed him. And so that's where I think he's very undervalued, especially across the league. People that don't really spend time watching the Pacers very much. They don't see how efficient he was from that left corner three, where he basically lived on that island. That's his real estate, and he owned it so well. But that's all he did because they had Paul George. At one time, they had Lance Stevenson, and that's what they were. But now that he's gone, I think you're going to really gain a faster tempo, a guy that can push, another offensive threat with Jeff Teague. We saw it practice yesterday. Teague sprinting it up the floor, driving to the left high post, jump stop, kicked it to Paul George around the arc, buried a three. And you wouldn't see that as much with George Hill. As far as expectations go, just like everybody's kind of touched on, I don't see them sitting second. Probably they'll have their injuries. I think it'll take some time for them to come together. They have 2 new starters, 3 if you count Miles Turner, who's just entering his second year. And I don't think it's a big concern at this point yet, but he hadn't practiced. He suffered a concussion the week before training camp. So they've told him, don't come to practice, stay out of the light, stay out of this. So he's going to be starting
just
from
fine
behind.
with that too. I'm sure he's just fine with that too.
Yeah, no question.
Keith, expectations for this Indiana ball club?
Yeah, as I kind of said before, I think they're going to be a good team. I don't think there's any question about that. What I wonder is there's all this talk about them playing more up-tempo and running, but Nate McMillan, when he was the coach of the Blazers, played some of the slowest basketball in the entire league. So we'll see. Was that a personnel thing? Was that what he had?
That's what he says.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've seen that and heard that. So, but I think sometimes coaches, the minute things go wrong, they retreat to what they know, right? And it's going to be defense and slow it down and pack it in. So we'll see. I do think I want to touch on Al Jefferson for a second. I think that guy's going to eat up second units. Once he went to the bench in Charlotte, he was excellent last year. Just second unit centers can't defend him. He's going to beat them up. Down there, he's going to, live on that left block, get the touches. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has one of his numbers might be down because the minutes will be down, but one of his more efficient seasons he's ever had in the league. I think he's just going to do really, really well for them. I'm with what Scott said. Cleveland's by themselves at the top of the conference. No one's catching them. That's probably not it. Maybe a Toronto could pass them if Cleveland goes into real coast mode. At the top, but I think the Pacers somewhere in that next grouping, anywhere from, probably for me, anywhere between the 3 and 6 range, for them is where I think we'll ultimately see them land.
Okay, Mike, how about you? Where do you see this Pacers team finishing?
I can see them anywhere. I still see them in the home court advantage conversation, 2 through 4. I'm not going to drop them to 5. Too much talent here, especially with an East that's still developing. But will they be committed to that defensive end? Because even on the high school level, you defend first. That gets you easier opportunities to run. That way, you don't have to run set up offense like that. You get up and down the floor. Jeff Teague is more of I can attack and make the play versus just having a Monta that's going to attack the score, or George Hill, who's really complacent with setting it up. I'm not down in George, but that's where Jeff changes the game for them because he's not just running the break to only look to pass and only look to score. He's got a good mix of both.
What I can tell you that I thought was interesting was on the first day of camp this week, I asked, hey, Coach McMillan, what was the focus? Because last year it was the same talk about playing up tempo, but they didn't have the personnel to do it. But there was still the talk and the demand from Larry Bird. So they basically put defense on the back burner for a couple weeks, basically all of training camp. And this year, not the case. Nate McMillan said we've done some offensive sets, but we know we got to defend. We know we got to rebound, and by doing so, we'll be able to do what we want offensively. So the goal and the focus first couple of days so far of training camp has been defense, led by Dan Burke, who's well regarded for his defensive prowess with the Pacers. He's been with the team since 1997. You don't see that very often.
Man, wow.
So will George be playing the 4?
No,
I
don't think so.
I don't remember eyebrows are raised with that.
That took over the dominant storyline last offseason. And then you know what? He ended up playing it something like 2 games. He was totally against it. Frank was against it because he knew it didn't work. Larry was pushing for it. And ultimately what happened the first couple months of the season is CJ Miles unselfishly said, you know what? I'll do it. I'm a team guy. I'll do it. And was fine for the first month, had an exceptional month. Paul was able to play his 3 spot, was Eastern Conference Player of the Month, all of that. But then the grind, battling against the Dirks and the big guys like that, really beat up his body. And CJ's a pure shooter.
Right, yeah, that's not his game.
They basically lost him for the season because he had feet problems, ankle, knee. And for a shooter, that just ruined everything. So I don't think you'll see that. I think you'll see CJ some at the 4, but hopefully not very much. They got enough bigs on this roster.
Oh yeah. They
especially picking up young. That's big.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I've been curious to see. We've seen like 10 minutes post every practice, and every single time I've seen Thad knock down 2 3-pointers, lefty 3-pointers. So he's stretching his game out before. I'm not an expert in his game. I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch many of the Nets games.
No one did.
Yeah, and who still would, right? But I was surprised with his range a little bit so far with what I've seen. I definitely am.
Yeah, he's got that kind of – he can step out and hit that shot. You just – where he's running into trouble is when he's falling in love with it, and then he's not doing the things that make him a good player. You know, you want him still – slashing to the basket, getting inside, but he's definitely got that kind of range.
Reminiscent of Josh Smith.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Nobody misses like Josh Smith.
Gonzo, how do you see the Pacers finishing this year?
2 seed, nothing less.
Nice.
Wow.
Just right there with it. He's been high on them all when they made all those signings. Yes. Nice, Lance.
Yeah, I think third or fourth. Honestly, I like Toronto, but I'm not completely sold on them doing the same thing this year. But I think Brad Stevens and the acquisitions they made in the offseason, I think the Celtics will still be better than the Pacers in the end of the day.
Okay. I'm going to say between 3 and 6. Just I want to see how they're going to look defensively. And one thing that seems to happen to Paul George, he starts off really good and he kind of falls off a little bit as the season goes on. And I want to see if he can be consistent the entire season this year. I think if he can do that, they play good defensively, then I think, definitely a 3 seed. But I'll go with 4, probably 4 or 5 right now.
It's funny you mentioned the start to Paul George's season, excluding the season he was out. His last 2 full seasons, he was Eastern Conference Player of the Month in November. Been excellent at the very beginning.
And I think it was not. Was it? What was the year that they were supposed to beat Miami?
Oh man,
that was the year before.
13-14, right?
13-14.
Yeah, 13-14.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, he had that monster start. He was like the MVP.
That's where Roy disappeared.
Yeah. It was like 4 rebounds a game or something like that. It was.
He was awful. He was terrible in the playoffs. And then
Space Jam, the aliens got him.
That's right. All right, so
like
now
2 donut games against Atlanta. By the way.
7'2" can't rebound.
Yeah, that's the joke here in Indianapolis on local radio shows. Man, you 7'2". Grab a rebound, you know.
Yeah, pretty funny. It was bad.
Yes. All right, Scott. So we've got Nate McMillan taking over as head coach, and I know you touched on it a little bit. So what do you think the offense is going to look like this year?
I think there'll be a lot fewer sets. I think he's going to have more of a free-flowing style of offense. He's looking to reward guys, grab rebounds, and go. And then also, by having a less strict offense, it allows guys to try to create on their own and capitalize off their strengths. And so he's not trying to make things complex. He's simplifying things. I think too many times coaches have too many sets and slow the game down by calling out plays. right now he's really discussing so much. Just get it, go. If you find something you like, take it, and don't back away from it. There was a time today during practice where someone passed up an open shot to make an even better pass. It was a great pass, but he goes, how many times are you going to pass that up? You're going to knock that down 8 out of 10 times, so take it.
Very good.
Nice
Keith.
insight.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see him play exactly what Scott said. No, not a lot of sets, not running a lot of plays. I think you're also gonna see them play a lot of spread, where they're gonna really spread the ball. They've got shooting at just about every position, even guys coming off the bench. Outside of when Al Jefferson's in the game, he'll definitely. I mean, at this point, no one's going to move him off that left block. That's going to be where he is all the time. But outside of him, I think, especially in that starting 5, you're going to see them spread it out. Maybe run some of that spread pick and roll with shooters, stationed around the perimeter, and that's going to really open things up, especially for a guy like Monta, he's starting to lose his quickness just a touch.
A little more than a touch.
Yeah. I was trying to be nice, but having a little more room to get get in there and operate is going to help out a guy like him. And I think that's Teague. We saw Teague do well with that in Atlanta when Atlanta put 5 shooters on the floor. That's when he could really go into work. And one thing I think they'll make use of, especially in certain matchups, when Teague gets somebody that's just a little bit smaller than him, he likes to take that guy down inside. He punished Isaiah Thomas the last 2 years with that. He does that to Kyrie Irving as well. He's not afraid to take Kyrie down inside, and get a shot off over him. He's got a lot of confidence doing that. So I think they'll work that into the offense a little bit too.
Mike, what do you think this offense is going to look like?
Yeah, like they're saying, they're going to speed it up. They've got the talent to do so. They've got guys that can create on their own. They don't have to worry about, hey, let's run a 4 out, fist up, any of that other stuff. And I think Al Jefferson can get into some screen and roll. He's better than most people want to believe just because he's such a back-to-the-basket guy. But he can catch, shoot about 15 feet, or even roll all the way to the basket, which you're not seeing out of a bunch of 5 these days. But with Miles Turner stretching it out, like you guys saying, Jeff Teague is a miniature bully. He's got some Kyle Lowry to him. He's just not as tough as Kyle Lowry. He can take dudes down there in that paint and actually do a little work. But as far as just everybody attacking, can they all deal with, hey, I can actually do it now instead of being so passive, passing up open shots to get another guy a shot? That's cool every now and then, but if you're going to make 8 out of 10 or you can get to the lane where people are trying to get free throws, you might as well go do that.
Absolutely. Gonzo.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't know what to expect right now. Nate McMillan is such a defensive coach. I'm worried about the offense. Like, they have the talent. I just want to know, are the Eagles going to be in check when they try to bring everything together? Are they going to keep those in check, man? Because it's hard for me to say. I don't want to jump the gun, but I think they're going to be good defensively, and I think that's what
they're going to be a 2 spot.
I'm not expecting egos to be an issue at this point. I mean, we've talked to several of the guys. Monte's saying, yeah, I get it. I'm an old guy. This is Paul George's team. Miles Turner's coming along. He's going to be an all-star. So I think they realize this is Paul with Miles and everybody else.
Absolutely. Lance.
All right, well, definitely going to be, more run-and-gun offense. I really don't think they're going to be any slower. I mean, because I think that's part of the reason why Vogel was fired. I'm not really like inside with them, like maybe Scott is, but I think it's because their offense wasn't as great and up tempo, and that's why he got fired. So I don't think like the tempo is going to be a problem. I think they're going to be more sped up. Probably will have 4 out, 1 in. I will love to see Jefferson eating up players on the second unit, though. I swear I love his pump fake. It's probably top 5 favorite thing in the NBA to watch. A big man down there that knows how to pump fake and use his body. But yeah, I'm not worried about their offense. It's the defense that I'm worried about.
Yeah, I agree with what all you guys said. I don't really need to say any much more that hasn't been said. Scott, 3 things that you think will be key for the Pacers this year for them to be successful or possibly fall apart.
We'll go number one, health. Everybody needs their health. You can't have any kind of injury. Miles Turner, this concussion he currently has, can't be anything that's prolonged. Al Jefferson's a guy here late in his career that he's always out for about 15, 20 games anymore is a big concern for me. So health's number one. Two, like you guys have all said, defense. How much do they drop defensively? Because over the last 6 years, they've really been a top 5 defensive efficient team in the defensive efficiencies. And so I think that's going to drop off. But if they go down to 15, 20, I'm not expecting that big a drop off. But if they do, that's a big, big warning. And number 3. Well, let's see. I want to see what they get from Monta Ellis. Has he turned the corner? And is he going to help this team? I think he is. But if he's just hanging around making 11 mil and isn't a big-time contributor, talking 13 points per game consistently that they can count on, I think that'll hurt him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Keith.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing is, does the offense come together with that many guys who are used to having the ball in their hands on a regular basis? So that'd be my first one. Second one, I think we're all going to say exactly what Scott said. The defense is going to drop off. How far does it drop?
Yep.
That's going to be a question for me. And then the third one is, down here at Orlando Summer League, I had a chance to talk to Larry Bird and Kevin Pritchard, and this was when it was all starting to really come together for the team. And I asked them specifically, is the Paul George at power forward thing dead? And they both kind of laughed and said, if he's not willing, then it's dead. And I think, so it's going to be, how much do they, obviously he's a top probably 10 player in the league, off the top of my head. I don't think there's any question about that. And then how do they build the team around him going forward? Because that's the whole goal, right, is to try to lock him up, long term as soon as they can. And how are you going to build this team and improve them around that when really the only young talent that they have that hasn't been around for a little bit at this point is Miles Turner? He's a good one to have, but all the rest of the guys, they're veterans who have been around for a while, and some of them are on the back end of their career more towards the prime years. So how are they going to build that team, and does that start at some point this season with in-season moves?
That's where I see them more as a win-now team, because you look at their core, and they basically, other than Miles Turner, are surrounded by veteran guys, the 27 through 30-year-olds, the Thad Youngs. Monte's a little over the hill, but Thad Young, CJ Miles, Rodney Stuckey, etc. I think Larry's very much in a win-now mode. He always is, or at least tries to be.
Yeah, and even most of the bench, right? They've all
Jefferson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what about you? 3 keys.
My first key is the defense. Are they going to commit to actually playing that defense with guys like Jeff Teague? He's not a premier stopper, but he can stick with some of these guys. And some people are kind of underselling how good Thad Young is on defense. He can make up for some of those deficiencies out there, especially when you have a rim protector behind you like Miles Turner. And number 2 is how much can they get out of the young guys? Because putting a whole bunch of miles on your starters, your core group, Paul George's legs, and Monta getting up there in age, how many minutes can you save those guys before the end of the season comes around? Because when playoffs hit, 82 games starts to wear on you, right on your back. You feel how heavy it is if you don't get the rest during the season. And number 3 is, will Nate McMillan put that fist down to take control? Because everybody knows it's Paul George's team, but are they going to follow the system? Are they going to ride with that when that first bump comes? When they get that first West Coast road trip of 7 games in 10 days, and maybe they drop 4 out of the first 5.
Gonzo.
First, I'm going to say health, obviously. Second is defense. And third, I need Paul George to elevate his game about that much more.
Being consistent for the entire year and not having that drop off the last couple months.
That's why I wonder about if they'll manage minutes a little bit better or his games, because last season he basically played every single game. They held him out of the last one. That was a pure coach's decision.
They kind of have to, though, right?
his first year back from an injury, and he played the whole season.
Yeah, I think you'll see a minutes restriction a little bit. It seems like a lot of teams are doing that now.
Yeah.
Greg Popovich started it, and then it just caught on, and now they were talking about that on NBA radio
Copycat
yesterday,
league.
I think. Yeah, exactly. Lance, 3 keys.
All right, so just to put it in perspective with the defense, I know like it seems like it's like a cliche thing we keep saying, but like to put it in perspective, they were 3rd in defensive rating last year. So like it's a big question mark. How far will they drop? I mean, that was one of the biggest things they did last year. So defensive consistency will, like we said earlier, well, I think they might have to have Monta off the bench just because maybe they can't all share the ball. Some players won't be great off ball. Will they have to go to that? And then we'll just say health as well, because I mean, if Paul George goes out for any decent duration of time, then their season could be over with.
Absolutely. I'm going to say one, I think roles being defined, and I know I say that a lot just with all these new guys, guys used to having the balls, everybody going to buy in. So I think that's key. 2, I think I'm going to say defense, like everybody said. I don't have to say much about that. Right. But 3, I want to see Miles Turner. I think he's going to be huge for this team. Is he going to be that second scorer? Can he give you the 17 to 18 points a game, the 10 rebounds, 2 blocks? If he can do that, this could be a really scary team, especially with his ability to take it out. He can shoot the 3, so that I think is going to be big for me is the development of Miles Turner and what he can bring this year. All right, we are down to our last question. Scott, 1 bold predictions for the Pacers this year.
I'll play off what you just said. Miles Turner, All-Star.
Yes.
Woo! Yes. I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like his game. I didn't go to Vegas, obviously, for the select team, but talking with people out there, including Paul, Paul was saying guys on his team, on the Olympic team, pointed to Miles and said, oh, he could hang with us. He could be on this team right now. And so I think he's the guy that's ready to take his game to a next level. He was talking about how if he knew what he knew before his rookie season, how much better and more prepared he would have been. So I think all goes well with this concussion. I think he's set for a terrific season. I'm not ready to say breakout by any means, but I think he's poised to have a terrific season this year.
Outstanding. Keith.
I'm going to say that they finish for a bold prediction. This isn't necessarily one I'll hang my hat on, but if I'm going bold, I'll say that they finish 5th or 6th in the East.
Okay.
It just doesn't come together. You know, a lot of guys, trying to figure out roles. They're clearly a playoff team, but I think I could, envision a scenario where Cleveland, Toronto, Boston, Charlotte, and if they play like the way they did after they got Tobias Harris, Detroit finishes in front of them too. So that, I'm not necessarily saying that, but if I'm going with a bold one, that's what I'd go with.
All right. Mike.
My bold prediction, so I can't go with Miles Turner because I've seen the kid. I know he's going to be a hell of a player. Being down here in Texas, dude is nice. But I say Monta gets traded.
Okay.
He's not going to be happy. He's not going to have the ball all the time. They're going to ask him to do something different. Nate is good for rocking the boat. Tell him to come off that pine. He's not going to be wanting that. Somebody's going to take up that weak contract.
Mm-hmm. All right, Lance, you got time to think of another one.
I mean, man.
I'm going to go to Gonzo.
Yes,
Gonzo.
I'm going to go on a limb on this one because I know I said the Bulls Eastern Conference Finals, but if the Pacers and everything clicks and goes well, NBA Finals.
NBA Finals, yes.
God. You did ask for bold, didn't you?
Yeah. So, hey, that means we could get the Bulls and the Pacers in the conference finals.
Oh, man.
There we go.
What universe do we live in? That happens. Man, honestly, I can't think of anything bolder than the Monta trading in the finals. So, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm just going to have to cop out and just say the Monta trading because as much as I love Monta, like especially his 2 years in Dallas, like he did some amazing stuff for our offense, but I've seen him pout. I've seen him. I'm not saying he will do this year, but just history repeating itself. He might get traded if he doesn't want to come off the bench. If the offense isn't working with him in starting lineup, they might have to trade him. That's the only thing that, like, as bold as I can get. I can't think of anything else because then I'll just sound like maybe Skip Bayless on here or something. I don't want to get too crazy.
I'm gonna go somewhat. I'm kind of with Scott. I'm not. I could say all-star. I'm gonna say most improved player. Miles Turner. I think he gets 18 points, 10 rebounds. He's going to win most. We know how that award works in the NBA. You saw it with C.J. McCollum. You up your scoring average a lot, you're probably going to win that award.
Pacers are due for it.
Absolutely.
They had Danny Granger. Then they had Paul George.
Yes.
Maybe Miles Turner.
Yes.
All drafted 5 years apart, each of them.
Yes. That's what I'm going with. Most improved player, Miles Turner. I think that's gonna wrap us up today. This will all be uploaded to iTunes. Just go on there, click podcasts, Unquestionably Raw. Then for those of you watching this on YouTube, make sure hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and when tomorrow we will have the Cleveland Cavaliers at 9 Eastern. Saturday we're gonna do 2. We're gonna go. We're going to go 5:30 Eastern. We're going to do the Charlotte Hornets. And then 6:15 Eastern, we're going to do the New York Knicks. Scott, let everybody know where they can find you.
Okay, so I run my own site, vigilancesports.com. I have a podcast, the only Pacers podcast, Vigilant Sports Pacers podcast. And I'm every social media site, just my name, @Scott
Outstanding. Keith, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. You can find my written work at Real GM, Today's Fast Break, and Celtics blog.
Outstanding. I'm not going to go to Mike because I know he's not the big Twitter user. He's on there, but he's not the biggest user. Gonzo.
Man, Buzz shouted me out yesterday. I'm good.
Yeah, there you go. Gonzo. Let them know where they can find you.
Oh, you can find me at DJ Gonzo Star on Twitter.
Outstanding. Lance.
Well, you can find me at Lance972, also a writer for crossoversportnet.com. I usually do Mavericks, but, I switch it up a little bit and touch on other teams as well in the NBA.
Outstanding. Well, guys, that's going to close this out until tomorrow night. We will see you guys again tomorrow.